And welcome in and good afternoon. It is afternoon live here on the Maize and Blue Review. We're here weekdays at 1 o'clock. We're a part of Rivals, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And that includes, as you might guess, recruiting. And it's perfect to bring on the recruiting editor for the Maize and Blue Review. And that is Zach Libby, who you see on the screen and you hear here on the air. What's going on, Zach? How are you?
Dennis, how are you, sir? Glad to be back on.
It's warm weather's coming our way, nice and sunny today. And I don't know, how do you feel like if you had to generalize all Michigan fans right now? Do you feel like they're feeling good about Michigan's recruiting efforts? Are they holding the line here, just waiting for something big to happen? What's your feel on that?
Well, if you read the boards, it's chaos. I mean, this is the biggest disappointments. Like, it's awful. But I mean, you asked the question maybe about last week about whether fans should be disappointed or not when it comes to recruiting, and I told you that it was April, not even the end of April. I think Brandon Justice, our senior editor, mentioned this last week when you guys were on, that Michigan likes to play the long game, and we still got around 8 more months till the first national signing day. So I would say hold on a bit. There's still time. There's a ton more recruits with Michigan interest, and they're top 15 right now with recruiting rankings. And if you want to take an example, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Texas, they're all lower than Michigan right now. But do you really think that's going to stay the same come December? So we'll see.
I don't, but to the people that are a little bit worried, in their defense, you think about what happened last year, and you listen to some of the national guys, national recruiting guys are like, yeah, it's really not going to happen last year with a recruiting bump. It'll be down the line. Like, and so I think that people looking out there, they look to see like the 5 stars, the very highly rated 4 stars, and why Michigan isn't popping up all over the place in terms of the list and who they like. And I would say it looks a lot like last year, but in between that, Michigan won the Big Ten and went to the college football playoff. So I think people were hoping, and it's good to be, have take the long view and everything else. But I think people were hoping that that there were going to be a lot more big time players interested, if not committed, at this point. And I think Zach froze up there for a second. Yeah, I think he's staring me down like, I didn't like your question. So we'll look at that. There you are, Zach. You froze for a second. I said, did you hear what I had to say? My question about in the defense of people that are a little bit worried about everything.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you're not in the who's who or in the ins recruiting, and you just see them. But I mean, if we were in October talking, or November, then my opinion would change. But like, this is my first recruiting cycle, so I'm still getting the ins and feels of how everything is. It's just too early. Like, we still have officials, we still have spring camps that Southern schools underway. Michigan are hosting. I think that with the spring evaluation period is now happening, so coaches can now go to these schools and see recruits. I think that's going to be big. There's just time. It's a waiting game. It's a patience. It's all about patience. If Michigan fans can stay patient, which, I'm not telling you otherwise, but I'm just saying, stay patient, stay calm, and let it ride.
Let it ride. All right. Well, with that, you might have to talk me down while we're here. Big time player. So when you're talking about patience, you're not ready to put any future casts in this week, or of any big time players here, or if you want to extend it out, to the month, May, nothing imminent here of any big time players out there that are ready to pledge to the Wolverines?
I have not put a future cast in for Michigan. I was planning on, well, we'll give an example. Sam Pendleton, 2023 four-star offensive tackle, has his commitment on the 25th. If we were talking in February, I would say he would be a lock to Michigan, but right now it's looking like Notre Dame. And I think that goes back to how this is a disappointment. How are these recruits, especially like an offensive lineman who has seen Michigan win the Joe Moe Award, what Sharon Moore has done, and everything else, you just think like, why isn't Michigan being like, working off its Big Ten title? But, I can't explain it best other than just let it ride and let it wait. It's Michigan is not letting, is not playing get them now and then wait for the rest later, like Texas A&M is doing, or Texas Tech, or Arkansas. Just stay patient, let it stay ride, and then we'll get these big stars in. They understand the brand, they understand tradition, they talk about the history, they understand that Michigan wins and is a blue blood. It's not like they don't understand what Michigan is all about. They have great relationships with the coaching staff. The coaching staff has consistently talked to them on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And the visits that they go on, they're blown away every time. So it's nothing that Michigan has done wrong or anything that they haven't done right. There's just, that's the landscape. There's going to be competition. There's going to be other variables that come to play. And Michigan will finally, at one point will get its time to shine with these recruits coming in.
There's one from out in left field. Somebody was asking me today if I thought that Michigan was getting off to, again, like, if I'm just going to call it a slow start, if they were getting off to a slow start because of the turnovers with the coordinators and the turnover overall in the staff. And he mentioned that, you always hear about it's relationships. Do you think there's anything to that with the turnover, certainly with both the offensive and defensive coordinators at Michigan?
No, I think Jesse Minter has done his job in establishing a presence with recruiting. Recruits remember him at his time in Vanderbilt. He really was a people person, from what I've heard. He really honed in on who he wanted. For an example, there's a recruit named Ethan Crisp who I've talked to a couple times, and he was always talking about Vanderbilt and what Jesse Minter did. He's actually now committed to Vanderbilt. So, and then with the offensive coordinators, they've had relationships prior when they were just position coaches. It just means more element in getting more development and more trust into them. There's nothing that I don't think that hasn't played a factor at all. If anything, maybe you can say that Harbaugh interviewing with the Vikings might had some pull in the early beginning, but I think that cloud has sailed, and I think recruits understand that the head coach is staying here for long term. So if anything to do with coaches, maybe in February you could have said about Harbaugh, but now with the coordinators, absolutely not.
Yeah, that was my other true and false, and I'm with you. I think that there's a lot of Michigan's rivals, certainly their opponents, that like to bring that up, like, oh yeah, well, Harbaugh, you'll be ready to go to the Vikings at any point. But I don't really think that has anything to do with that. Meanwhile, Notre Dame, for whatever reason, they have a new coach in Marcus Freeman. He was there on the staff, so he did have those relationships. But I don't think things could be going any better here for the Irish. They're pulling in recruits left and right here that in the early going, and then they seem to have their tentacles in on all of these big time players, especially the quarterbacks, and in particular the ones from the great state of Michigan that the Wolverines are after. What's your takeaway here with Notre Dame and Freeman and just the success that they're having?
TMBR has a really good relationship with the rivals site for Notre Dame inside ND Sports. We have a lot of connections with them, and just talking from them and just from what I see from from an outsider's perspective, Freeman is a flashy character. He's very, he understands what it's like, for these recruits to have this experience. I mean, he's been with Notre Dame for how long? It's not like he's new to the system. He's not new to the culture there. He just brings a more energetic, passionate, and enthusiastic style that has resonated with recruits. I mean, for instance, Sam Pendleton has leaned on Notre Dame, and he's only visited once, and they came in late. So it goes to show what Notre Dame has done. I think I think Freeman has not changed the culture from when Brian Kelly was there, but he brings a different layer to the perspective of what Notre Dame can give to a student athlete. And I think it's really, like I said, resonating with recruits. And, it's, you can compare them to like Texas A&M. You can compare them to Alabama, but I think Notre Dame has really put his spot in national recruiting, and they'll always be a big dog, but Freeman has really added it to an extra level that we haven't seen before at Notre Dame.
Yeah, he's just a hell of a fit. I don't know if you saw that video last year when they were making the announcement. They had a camera in the corner there, and they're like, "Hey, here's the coach," and the players. I mean, they just genuinely flocked to him and rallied around him. So they got that going. Not that we want to make this any kind of Irish podcast, so we'll push that to the side here. But what about these camps that are coming up? This is something that's going on in April and May. We did just see these are rivals camp down there in Texas this past week. Anybody in particular that you would highlight that was down there at the rivals Dallas camp?
Yeah, so I went to my first rivals camp since taking over, back in December, and it was a shame that the camp happened on the same weekend as Elite 11 regional in Ohio. Could have got a chance to see Dante Moore, but I think there was so much, it was a big opportunity to not only scout prospects in Texas, and it was just something too good to pass up. There was about 7 players who actually showed up to the camp who held Michigan offers, but the number would have exceeded beyond double digits should everyone have attended. A couple of big names included 5-star offensive lineman TJ Shanahan, 4-star athlete Mikhail Harrison-Pilot, 4-star wide receiver Jaquez Petaway, David Starr Jr., who's number 10 overall prospect in the 2024 class. Noble Johnson, a 4-star wide receiver, who's building a good relationship with Ron Bellamy since the offer in March. You can actually find these stories that I did on the camp at Maize and Blue Review, including a list of 5 players at the camp who should receive Michigan offers, including a 6'7", close to 400-pound offensive lineman who just picked up an offer from Oregon right after his eye-opening performance. So you should watch those highlights.
Wait a second. That was like an ear opening. 6 foot what? How many pounds?
6'7", close to 400.
That's all, huh? Yeah, that sounds like a big boy. What's his name?
Breon Ramsey Brooks had offers from Arizona, Toledo, Georgia Tech before the camp, and now has Jackson State with Dion and Oregon. So it goes to show you how much these camps do for exposure, which is nice. Every single prospect that I talked to at the camp had nothing but great things to say about Michigan and the coaches who are actively recruiting them. Michigan has really done a great job in establishing their presence in the state, despite, the big name Texas schools continuing to have such a strong hold on its home turf. I think these guys are willing to talk about Michigan because, they hear about their connections to Baylor or A&M or Tech all the time. So seeing someone up north was almost like a relief to hear something different. But from who I've talked to, whether it was media or camp organizers or players, the perception around Michigan in Texas is that the recruiting efforts have been so successful, or are starting to be, because of its Big Ten title and college football playoff. And it's really separated them in terms of establishing or continuing to establish their national brand that resonates with the players in Texas, because they're more than willing to leave Texas if that's their best chance of winning a national championship and being developed to be NFL ready. I mean, for example, Mikhail Pilot has a top 12 with Michigan and Cal and Oregon and Florida State, USC on it. But they just need a reason to leave in Michigan, given the opportunity. The negatives that I heard were obviously that it's cold in late fall. It's far away from loved ones, but the only way to fix that is by moving away from Ann Arbor. But I don't know. For a more realistic standpoint, as long as Michigan continues to sell the tradition, the history, the brand, they'll be in a good spot in Texas. And it also helps that, let's face it, the state of college football in Texas hasn't exactly been the best. You got Texas struggling since Mac Brown. You got A&M never winning recruiting battles up until this past cycle and current cycle. TCU has a new head coach and is in Big 12 purgatory.
Wow.
Tech also has a new head coach and trying to get back into the Big 12 championship conversation. But there's always going to be ways that Michigan could do better with recruiting in Texas, but they've done their homework in finding those who are willing to come up north.
Yeah, I forgot Gary Patterson was done there at TCU. It seemed like he was there for a million years. I was given, for people that are listening on the podcast, Zach, a hook 'em down, which is, I think, a penalty flag. Although once Texas announced they were headed to the SEC, a lot of the opponents were giving them the horns down. So you're going to Indiana? Is that what's happening coming up this weekend or the next weekend?
Yeah, this weekend's going to be a big one. So on Saturday, I'm going down to watch Michigan 2024 point guard commit Christian Anderson Jr. compete in session 2 of the Nike EYBL tournament. He's coming off 2 weekends ago. He was coming off session 1 in Orlando, where he lit up the stat sheet, combined with the 650, 60, 90 stat line in the 4 games. He plays for Team CP3, which is, of course, sponsored and run by the family of Chris Paul, and is based out of North Carolina. That team went 4-0 in Orlando and will play 1 game Friday and 2 games Saturday at the Pacers Athletic Center. Really looking forward to meeting Christian and meeting his loved ones and close ones, because TMBR has also had a really good connection with that family and inner circle, including his dad, who gives us, great information. Really just a really well-rounded kid. And you can say about his height, but he's one of the best shooters in the class.
How tall is his daddy?
6'5".
Well, so Christian Anderson has a little bit of ways to go there, but closer it gets to 6 feet, the less people are going to be worried about. If he stays at 5'8", I think there's a little bit of a legit worry about the height. But he's only a sophomore in high school, right? Now we're talking 2024. Is it freshman?
Yeah, no, sophomore. So still got 2 years.
Yeah, Heck, I grew a couple years in high school.
Yeah, so same here. Well, no, I did not. But regardless, if we're gonna follow the Dennis Fithian height, we're gonna see him go to 6'2", 6'3" at some point. Even if he goes to 6 foot, even if he stays at 6 foot, his shooting is off the charts to the point where it wouldn't be a problem for me.
Me neither. All right, well, tell me. Let's throw some other. I don't know if there's curveballs, but let's put up on the screen the rivals top 20 from the state of Michigan. And there's Dante Moore. You mentioned him earlier. Elite 11. Some things have happened here recently. It sounded like Michigan was doing all right, but then Notre Dame has closed in. Would you say that Notre Dame is the leader for Dante Moore right now?
I'll admit that I don't know, because he keeps his cards so close to his chest. I was talking with when I went to Washington, D.C. 2 weekends ago, I was talking to a close source who knows Dante really well. And his words were, only he and God knows where he's going. And you can speculate all you want. You can throw out future casts for him. But I know he'll play this out to the end. If he really liked Notre Dame that much, I think he would have set a commitment date already. If he's going to LSU, he's been to LSU. I heard he's looking to go to Texas Tech, maybe Miami. So we don't know. Like, if for anybody who says they know, they don't. Like, we have so much time left, but I think what's really interesting about Dante's recruitment is how it's going to affect Michigan with its quarterback recruitment for next cycle. And I think Adam Gorney put out a piece on that, which we published on the site yesterday, that really spoke in depth about how the dominoes will fall and how it will affect everything with like CJ Carr and Julian Sayin, and how Michigan, and how Michigan will, be affected by that as in the overall picture.
Yeah, and give me a Reader's Digest on that. And for the people that are listening, Dante Moore, quarterback for next year. Both of those other signal callers that you mentioned are for the 24 class. That means they're sophomores in high school. CJ Carr here locally, and Justin Sayin, who is from California. But I remember just recently the story that you had on the Maize and Blue Review. Sayin was saying that Michigan's making him a priority, which had everybody, wondering exactly what what that means. But then it was like, well, what does that mean for Carr? So, what about these dominoes, and what's the likelihood that if Michigan gets more, that they'd get either of these two quarterbacks the following year? And if they don't get more, what's the possibility of landing either Carr or Sayin?
Yeah, I really thought about this answer, and I wanted to make sure I hit every talking point. But yeah, we broke that story when I was in Dallas about Sayin being the priority. That is verbatim from Sayin himself after his talks with Harbaugh over FaceTime while he was at the Masters tournament. Actually, didn't really come as a surprise to me, but it really said how good of a quarterback Sayin really is. From what I've seen on film, he shows great poise in the pocket, doesn't force throws or allow pressure from defenses, to cause him to make mistakes. His footwork is tremendous, and he can really spin the ball. Michigan, for Sayin to hear that from Harbaugh, isn't something new for him. Texas, Notre Dame, Georgia, Florida have all told him that as well. I think Sayin knows he's a top quarterback at this point, but he's keeping it humble and, continues trying to work to prove that he's worthy of that praise. Michigan's got quite a lot of work to do in order to land Sayin. Hence, his recruitment is going so national with all the aforementioned schools honing in on him. I think his quote of saying that Ann Arbor is a special place means something, though. He is a great conversationalist, so I don't go saying that for nothing. He told me he is coming back for another visit because of his relationship with Matt Weiss and Harbaugh, which dates back, before December of last year. And I truly think Michigan's one of the early contenders. We still got 2 years, but I think they've shown how much of a priority they wanted him, and we'll use that moving forward. But obviously, with the elephant in the room being that there's a quarterback in CJ who's from Saline, has 2 grandfathers in the whole Football Hall of Fame. His dad played quarterback, I think, right? And
yes,
is also in the top. Yeah, so he's also in the Rivals 100. I mean, look, CJ's told me twice in the 2 times that I've talked to him in person that he's not a Michigan lock, and actually feels kind of frustrated by the noise, just assuming that he's going to Michigan. I think CJ wants to experience being a highly touted recruit and feel the love from who's showing interest in him. It's hard to not want that attention if you're 15 or 16 years old, but he's carrying it well. If you follow his recruitment, he's been to Notre Dame multiple times. I've seen him down in Cincinnati a couple of times. But I've also said this on our boards, and I've thought about this, and I think where CJ goes will be based on what Dante Moore does. I've seen it. There's I wouldn't say speculation, but I've seen it from other pundits and across other message boards that should Dante commit to Michigan, I think CJ will go elsewhere But if Dante commits to somewhere like Notre Dame or Ohio State or LSU, then Michigan's chances of landing CJ skyrocket. Not to say that Dante and CJ don't like each other or anything, but recruits go to a school where they feel like they can play early and have an impact early on. So if both CJ and Dante are at the same school, where does that leave each other for playing time? Brandon put it best on Friday, when he said that, there is that possibility, not a probability, but like a possibility that Sayin and Carr could end up at Michigan together. There's a lot of factors that play into that, and it's a long shot, but it's not something to rule out. The first domino, like I said before, the first domino has to fall with Dante's decision, and then we'll figure out the rest from there.
Dante's decision. All right. We all are holding our breath on that one. I have on the screen the rivals ranking for the state of Michigan. Dante Moore is number one on that list. Cole Cabana out of Dexter, who committed this, I don't know, a month or so ago out of Dexter. Let me just zip through some of these. And if you feel like Michigan's got a chance, how about Jalen Thompson? Is he earmarked for Michigan State, or do the Wolverines have a chance with the defensive end from Cass Tech? What do you think?
I've talked to Jalen off the record, and I don't want to say anything because of that off the record conversation. I think his presence at the Michigan State spring game said something. There's been talks before then that he was a Michigan State lean, and I think that will end up being his ultimate choice. He did put Michigan in his top 10 and has a great relationship with Mike Elston, but I think there's too much going on in terms of interest from Michigan State, where if he doesn't land there, I would be surprised. However, his teammate Kamari Anderson is a Cincinnati commit, and I've heard he and Jalen went down there too. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Cincinnati.
Well, if he's not going to go to Michigan, hopefully he goes to Cincinnati. All right, a couple more here. Cole Dellinger, a offensive lineman out of Clarkston, says he's undecided. Does Michigan have any chance at the offensive guard? 6'4", 260 listed as.
I don't think so. I think his brother plays for LSU, so okay. I think he's been to LSU countless times. So I would say he goes south.
You mentioned Anderson. Let's get two more in here. Amir Snowden, a corner out of Roseville, and then Amir Herring out of West Bloomfield, where his teammate Samaj Morgan, who's ranked 8, is already committed to Michigan. What about Amir Herring and Michigan's chances with Herring, and then Amare Snowden, Wolverines with a chance at either of those guys?
Well, Michigan hasn't offered Amare yet. Okay. So who knows if they offer, cool. But, I don't really know. I haven't asked, I've asked Amare, like, what is going on with Michigan. And he just said, we're just playing it out and waiting it out. But, it's April. So we're going to, at some point. But Amir is interesting because, there's talks of Michigan slow playing him, which for an interior lineman, he's a dog. Like, I've seen him at the Under Armour camp in Ohio, and he earned himself a trip, a spot in the Under Armour All-American game in Orlando in January. Him during pass rush, one-on-one drills, great low sense of gravity, and great hips, and his punch was first right off the snap. I don't know. I want to get answers on why Michigan is slow playing him for the guard or center spot, but he does have interest in Michigan. He's been there multiple times with Samaj and his teammates at West Bloomfield, but he has a top 8 right now, and a lot of them are Big Ten a lot of them are from the Big Ten. So if Michigan doesn't step up, we'll go somewhere else.
All right. A final question for you. Zach Libby, who is the recruiting editor for the Maize and Blue review, keeping himself busy time of year, the spring with his camps and driving or flying all around. We mentioned Dante Moore. To go back to him for just a second. I have a list of Michigan's offers here. I don't know if this is a complete or not, but if Michigan was not to get Dante Moore, would they look? I mean, is it a pipe dream? Arch Manning seems like a pipe dream. There's some players that are committed. Nelson to USC, a dual threat in Watson to Nebraska. That is it on the quarterback offer list as I have here. Any surprises that Michigan may spring, or is that something that's going to have to play out more closer to the start of the football season in your mind?
I think Michigan has gone all in on Dante, and that's why there's only 5 quarterbacks being offered by Michigan in this class. I wouldn't be surprised if they go visit Arch Manning sometime during these eval period. He's the number 1 overall player, and has his commitment will surely impact how the skill position players decide. We were talking before this podcast, and we were talking about the Warren De La Salle 3-star quarterback, Brady Drugish, who had the top performance at the Elite 11 regional camp, so he's really gotten some eyes on him. I said it on the boards maybe last week that Matt Weiss is going to go see Brady work out at the end of the month, and should they be impressed, Harbaugh and company, that they'll offer Brady. Brady's got some Big Ten interests. He has Minnesota, Maryland, and Indiana offers, and all the MAC schools pretty much. He could be an interesting, dark horse. Should Michigan offer? He's big, he's tall, he's like 6'5". He's got a cannon, got some mechanics to work out, but he's got a cannon. I think his Elite 11 performance really gave him some much deserved attention, and obviously has Michigan ears because he visited right after the camp. Harbaugh texted him right after. So I want to monitor Brady and see where that goes. But if Dante commits somewhere else, I'll have to look at other options, and Brady might be a good option.
It sounds good. Are you going to be at Lucas Oil? Is a high school down in Indy? Where's the camp taking place down there in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I forgot to mention about the football camp. Yeah, we got a Rivals camp in Indy, downtown. It's like a high school, downtown Indy. A lot of Midwest guys are going to be there. We'll have rosters out Friday, I believe. If you want to take a look at the big names coming there, Clint Cosgrove, Midwest recruiting analyst, published a top 5 prospects must see at the camp, and 3 or 4 of them got Michigan offers or have big Michigan interests. So be sure to check that out. We'll have coverage and video and everything this weekend from basketball and football, so it should be a big one.
Yeah, well, safe travels. It's always great to talk with you. We'll have to do it more often, Zach, and hopefully it warms up here weather-wise and on the recruiting front. I'll throw that in again, even though you're telling everybody to be patient. Great job, and have a great time. Have a great time in Indianapolis this weekend.
Thank you, sir. Look forward to hearing from you next week.
All right. See you, Zach. There he is.
Take care.
Zach Libby.